Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Is there a difference between fearing Allah and being in awe of Him? This is reflecting the differences or the nuances contained within the words khawf and khashya. Khawf would often be translated as fear, and it would be a literal translation that is appropriate. Akhaful Asad, I fear the lion. Fear in this sense is a sense of terror, a sense of dread, a sense that one is being threatened or one's safety is compromised. Whereas khashya is sometimes translated as fear as well, but being in awe is a more suitable translation, considering the fact that the difference between khawf and khashya, or one of the subtle nuances, is that khawf contains this dread, this terror, whereas khashya is an awe-inspired respect, an awe-inspired sense of reverence towards another, based purely upon one's knowledge of that individual. That's the key here. So khashya for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala comes as a result of knowing Allah, knowing His divine attributes, His asma and sifat, knowing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is shadidul iqab, intense in punishment, but He's also ghafurur rahim, the most forgiving, the most merciful. Knowing who Allah is in relation to ourselves, this would allow us to feel the sense of khashya, having awe of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the reality is that neither of these qualities are negative within themselves, right? Having khashya of Allah is not negative, because it's like walillahi al-mathalul a'la, for Allah belongs the best of examples. But the relationship that a child has with his or her parents is generally going to be based upon one of khashya. It should be. But there would also be an element of khawf there, because you fear when your parents, if you're a child, you fear that your parent is going to perhaps punish you for doing something incorrect. But at the same time, even when things are good between yourself and your parents, why do you still respect them and obey them and follow their commands? Because you know them and you love them, and you understand who they are to you, and you understand who you are in relation to them. So this is more akin to khashya. So for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we actually need both. We need to know Allah, and our knowledge of Allah should inspire us with love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And at the same time, we also should have a healthy sense of fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, specifically in the sense of fearing His punishment, fearing disobeying Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. Or being in awe of Allah or khashya, one would be motivated to obey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala because of one's awe and reverence for Allah Rabbul Izzati wal Jalal. Because I know Him and I love Him so much that I would dread disappointing Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's like a child who dreads disappointing their parents, right? Even if their parents are not very harsh, they're not very strict, they don't really carry out severe punishments. But because the child loves their parents so much, when they do something wrong, they feel as though, subhanallah, I've disappointed my father, I've disappointed my mother. And these are healthy qualities to feel in relation to Allah Rabbul Izzati wal Jalal, provided that they are balanced. So our scholars, deriving from the principles of the Quran, the themes of the Quran, they've derived the principle that states al-imanu bayna al-khawfi wal-raja. And this is essentially how we develop this balance, right? That our faith should be a balancing act between khawf, fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's punishment, and raja, hope in His mercy, Rabbul Izzati wal Jalal.
La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah.